Hello and a big warm welcome to you. My name's Marion Rose.
And I'm Lael Stone.
And we would like to say there is nothing wrong with you.
You can just apply that to any context you like, just as our beginning start. No, this is a beautiful topic we wanted to talk about and bring it to you from our heart to yours. So we will dive into it. But before we do, Marion, how are you? What is happening in your world? Where are you at?
I was saying to you earlier, Lael, I've gone to that kind of cosmic joke humor of like just all the things that are going on in my life and in the wider world, and all I can do now is laugh, which I think is really helpful. In the imminentness, we're flooded in at the moment. We've got massive storms and flooding, although it's not raining right now, which is handy. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to hear me speak. Yeah, that's the big thing. But one bit of news: we just did our final homeschooling registration this week, so that is our last one ever, so I'm very happy to have that done. That's
amazing.
I feel relieved.
Yes, I bet. Well done on all those years of home educating your children. That's huge. That's really huge.
Thank you.
Yeah, amazing.
What about you, lovely Lael? What's going on in your world?
Well, I am still in between limbo. In between limbo.
In between limbo. That's.
I'm in between houses at the moment because we haven't quite moved down the coast where we're moving, and so my daughter started school, and so the school where she's going to is down the coast. So I've been living with my mum and my daughter for the last few weeks, and we go back to the city on the weekend to see my beautiful husband and my other kids and the dog. My daughter and I have decided I think we're missing the dog the most, which she said to my husband the other day, and he's like, really? And I'm like, oh, there's nothing quite like animals. It's just beautiful. And it's been really amazing because I was just reflecting. It's actually really beautiful to be with my mum. And it's interesting. She's just moved into mothering us. Like she's like making us food and doing our washing and ironing my clothes, which I think my clothes are all going, what is this thing called an iron? Because I don't iron anything. And that's been really beautiful to come back and just be in that space. It's been really beautiful. And the thing I've really been reflecting on is I really love my home. Like I am really quite a homebody. That's just, I love quiet and home, and that's where I feel the best. And so not necessarily having my own spaces at the moment feels tricky. But I keep saying I'm going to be really open to whatever this experience is and why we need to be here until we move finally. And what I've realized is because my daughter and I just hear a lot, and my whole thing at the moment was I just want to make sure that she feels really settled and gets what she needs. So I'm not doing as much work, and I'm just kind of tuning into her, and every day I drop her to school and pick her up, and we're just hanging out together. We're going for rides on my mum's electric bike, and we're going for walks, and it's like we're just having condensed special time for weeks, because my other kids aren't here and they're adults, so they don't necessarily need it. But because we don't have all the other distractions of home and the things I'd normally be doing, there's just this beautiful space that's been created with her and I, which again, I just am seeing the beauty of that. So even though it's not ideal, I'm just in those moments of, wow, there is actually beauty everywhere. It's just depending what lens we look through. So that's felt really gorgeous, actually, just to spend all this time with my 14-year-old daughter and just be with her while she integrates into this next part of her life, and then also hang out with my mum. It's been quite beautiful. So yeah, it's nice. I am still really looking forward to getting into our new house though, but all in good time. But it's been that beautiful reflection of, depends which way we look at it, right? On what we make it mean. So that's where I'm at. Yes, in this moment. Yeah, it's been nice.
Love hearing you speak, Lael.
Thank you, lovely. So let's jump into this week's podcast, and it's interesting when we often tune in with each other, don't we? Go, what should we talk about this week, or what's up? And what you came to me with, literally, I had a client, a few hours later say the exact same statement, and I was like, oh, that must be what we're going to talk about. There's nothing wrong with us, or there's nothing wrong with you, or there's nothing wrong with me when it comes to life and situations, and how we often are conditioned to make ourselves wrong. So do you want to start, Marion, by jumping in with what came up for you around us talking about this topic?
Yes, we know I always like to look at the culture and the effects of the culture, and how what I call the disconnected domination culture, which is not what Aletha or Aware Parenting calls it, but and what I believe the what I call the DDC is designed to do, which is to make us believe that there is something really fundamentally wrong with us and flawed, in our own different flavors, and how that how the DDC is perceptions of human beings, which would be some form of, that we're bad or we're evil or we need to be trained to be loving and all of those things. And I think what I would really love to acknowledge about aware parenting and practicing aware parenting, particularly when my children were younger, was the absolute evidence it gave me for the true nature of human beings, which is when their needs are met and their feelings are heard enough, which of course is harder as we get older, because we have a whole load of accumulated feelings and a whole load of harsh beliefs that we've internalized. But going back to children, when their needs are met enough, when their feelings are heard enough, they are loving, aware, present, open, connected. They want to contribute, they want to cooperate. The hundreds and the thousands and thousands of times I experienced that with my children, after a really big cry or rage or laugh, they would, their eyes would light up, they would be relaxed in their bodies, they would, be naturally affectionate, and not from a have to, but just like naturally wanting to, clear in their bodies, just like, can I help you, mum, or cuddling up, or I love you, or all of that stuff, which to me just was such clear evidence that is who we really are. And all the different theories around, and my background is psychology, I studied all the different personality theories about what we are and how we are the way we are. But to me, there was such clear evidence that that is who we are, when our needs are met, when our feelings are heard, and when we're given loving ways of thinking about things, which isn't so much the aware parenting model, but when we respond to children in compassionate ways, using compassionate words that they then internalize, that's who we really are. We are not naturally we're not inherently violent or aggressive or judgmental, or we don't inherently want to use power over others or silence them or hurt them. Those all come from, we always talk about the three things in aware parenting: information that's not helpful, unmet needs, or generally accumulated feelings. There's something so profound about that, it's not just a theory, it's actually first person experience to see that in operation. And I've spoken to so many parents over the years who've experienced that too. So I guess that's where, I would like to start there with that.
I love that, because every parent will know that experience of when you see your child in their true essence and nature. It's when they are explaining something with wonder. It's when they're giggling hysterically. It's when, they're calm in their bodies and they come up and connect with you. And we know that. We know when our children are feeling in their center. It's when you might hear them singing in their bedroom to themselves, or wanting to, share or discover something with you. You can see that they're, in the words I use, in balance, right? They're connected to who they are. And I love that we're talking about this, because that is their true nature. That's where we're meant to be. And you're so right, Marion, over all these years of me doing this work, as well as you have seen, not just with evidence with your children, but all the people we've worked with, that when we have that accumulation of feelings, when we are carrying those traumas, when we have suffered those pains and hurts and wounds, and we haven't had the opportunity to heal them or shift them or move them, then we behave or we act in ways that usually aren't deeply connected. And I think that's, I know why I love aware parenting so much, is it gives children the opportunity, and adults, to feel what feels big and hard and release it, so they can come back to their true nature. They come back to their center. And I think it's really important that we remember that, because it's very easy to sometimes look at children and go, they're bad or they're naughty, or it's very easy to have judgment around certain children, why they do certain things. And again, it usually is a bit of a reflection on how we're feeling about ourselves or what our stories have been. But there isn't any such thing as a bad child. There isn't. It doesn't exist, because children are just always trying to get their needs met. They're always trying to find their way back into that center. They're trying to find that connection. They're looking for information. They are looking to release some of the big stories and feelings that are sitting there. And our job as parents is to come back to that place, to remember that who they are is amazing. There is nothing wrong with them. They're just trying to communicate with us in a way that where we perhaps need to decode that language. And so I think for me, this was such a fundamental piece when I really got this, because it took me out of seeing my children as wrong or bad or naughty or making my life hard, and actually just flipped it to be, what are they trying to tell me here? What are they communicating with me? And that instantly moves a whole lot of the stories we have around it. And I know we've done another podcast on this, which was really about, what did we call it? Was it blame and shame or something like that? I can't remember.
Anyway. I remember the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know, I remember talking about it, but I don't remember.
Yeah. And it really was about what we tell ourselves and then what we project onto our kids. And I think that's a beautiful place to start. And then we take it a step further, as we often do, which is, well, where are those thoughts coming from within us? How are we feeling about ourselves? Where does that sit within, the belief systems around the way we are? Because we are so conditioned, particularly when we haven't had that opportunity to feel our feelings and feel connected and express ourselves in the way we needed to. It is very easy for us to internalize that and then create a big story about who we are and why perhaps we're wrong, or why we're not good enough, or judging ourselves, or, as you say, whipping yourself with those sticks with, self-judgment. And we can often carry such a story that I'm not okay, that I'm not enough, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm all these kind of things. And yet, if we stand back again and look at it and go, actually, there's nothing wrong with you. You've just had these stories or traumas or life experiences that you've been carrying around that haven't been able to be moved. And really, you're doing the best job you know how to keep yourself safe. That's where we're always coming from. I often say we're always coming from protection on some level. How do I keep myself safe here? And these are such beautiful, rich pieces to understand, because they actually help you to be free, right? They help you to go, there actually isn't wrong with me. I'm not bad. I'm not flawed. I'm not wrong. I'm just responding to my environment, or the environment I've come from. I'm doing the best job I know how. And now I can see it. I can take steps towards healing that, or shifting it, or being compassionate with myself to begin to change these stories, to come back to that deep compassion. Because when you come back to that within yourself, then it allows you to be that with others. And that is the ripple effect of doing the work, or of understanding this on a whole other level.
I love what you said about freedom, because when we're hitting ourselves with those sticks, that we're really immersed in there's something wrong with me, or so we're feeling shame, or we're feeling guilt, which is more about I've done something wrong. We're very constricted in terms of what we can do, and we're very easily we're not connected with our power at all, are we, when we're in those places? So again, I would say, it's very convenient on a cultural level to have people that believe there's something fundamentally wrong with them. We can be sold things through advertising if we believe, if I just get this, whatever it is, this car or this brand of breakfast cereal, whatever it is, then I might feel more like that person, or I might be more acceptable. But, the more we get to heal from these hurts around experiences where we were told that there was something wrong with us, or we were shamed, or we were judged, and actually releasing them more and more, the more we connect to how powerful we are, and that we become less and less dependent on things or other people's acceptance, because more and more it becomes an internal process that we give to ourselves.
Absolutely. And I, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about when I had PTSD and was suffering from pretty full-on anxiety many years ago now. that was really quite crippling because I couldn't work and I could only just look after my kids. And it was a really debilitating time. So much of the narrative that went through my head is, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just not do this? Why all of a sudden do I feel like I want to vomit when I have to think about doing this? Or why is it that I get all shaky? Or why is it like there was so much judgment around what my body was trying to tell me. And why can't I just be over this? And I've tried this modality, and why am I not fixed? And I've tried this and that didn't work. And I was looking for everything outside of me to fix me. And there were some things that were beautiful and helped heal pieces of me. But the thing that I really remember when I think back was the judgment of, why am I like this? This isn't okay. And it wasn't until I moved into welcoming what was happening and meeting it with compassion and understanding that it started to lessen, because it really was that I am actually just responding to something that happened to me that was really full on. And there is nothing wrong with me. And I'm not broken. I'm just a bit battered at the moment. And I just have a whole lot of stuff I need to dive into. And as I lent into being vulnerable, as I lent into stop trying to fix it or stop trying to brace myself against it, is where the healing began to happen. And I think that is such a huge thing that we're undoing, particularly if we look at the mental health space. And this is sometimes with labels, and it's sometimes with, and we're doing better with saying, everybody on some level has there is no normal really. We've all got stuff going on. But I really think that understanding that if you are depressed and sad, well, then there's probably a reason for it. And it doesn't mean that you are wrong or there's something wrong with you. It just means there's some stuff wanting some attention. And it's perhaps the same with anxiety. It's the same with many, many things that we can be really quick to label around, that they're messengers. They're messengers to say, hey, there's something here. And maybe we need some support to navigate it. Maybe we need some time or a change in our life to move some of that stuff. But it doesn't make you wrong. It makes you human. And so there is nothing wrong with you, because you are enough and your true nature is beautiful. And perhaps you were brought up in a way that made you think really badly about yourself, or where you were criticized, or where you were hurt. And what you've had to do your whole life is protect yourself from that. And now in adulthood, it's popping up and it's here, and it's asking, hey, what do we need to heal, or what's present here? And is that impacting our life? And then how do you want to feel? Because as you come back to that freedom piece, when we start to lean into it and we start to understand it, then we start to take control of it on some level. We begin to shift it so that we do become powerful, not powerless.
It's so powerful, isn't it, in terms of aware parenting? And if we imagine perhaps how we might have been parented compared to what we might want to be, how we might want to be responding to our children. So if we think on a basic level, responding to needs, how many times might we, and I invite you, listener or watcher, to reflect on that yourselves. How many times might you have called out for connection and being told that perhaps you were, I don't know, being judged, that you shouldn't want connection, or you should be able to, just go and be with the babysitter or go to school or whatever it was. And all the ways that our needs were judged, or we might have been shamed, or we might have just been told we were too sensitive, for example. So all of these beautiful needs that are so natural and normal, and from an aware parenting perspective, we're aiming to respond promptly to a child's needs or a baby's needs, and the ways we would have got shamed or judged for having needs. And then we can look at feelings. All the times we would have been needing to cry, we needing to rage, we needing to tantrum, needing to laugh, to express all the accumulated feelings, to heal from stress and trauma. That beautiful, natural, normal process that we're all born with. And again, in a culture that doesn't understand that, all the times we might have been told, there's nothing to cry about, or what's wrong with you, or you shouldn't be like that, or why are you upset, or I'll give you something to cry about. All of that, all of those responses, we would have internalized that, not as, or even, of course, parents who are just stressed, like we all get stressed, rather than, my parent just doesn't understand feelings, or my parents having a hard day, so they're responding like that. As children, we make it about us. We need to do that. We believe it's, there's something wrong with us, basically, for having feelings. And then we might behave in ways, because we have all these accumulated feelings, we might start hitting or biting or throwing or waking up 10 times at night, or being unwilling to cooperate, or being silly and goofy, all the ways that we know from an aware parenting perspective that children or young people behave when they have accumulated feelings. And then we might have got told, again, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just go to sleep? You're tired. Why are you hitting? What on earth is wrong with you? Why are you hitting your brother? What's wrong with you? Why won't you do your homework? All of those kinds of judgments again. So the layers and levels in which this goes in, and I know working with parents, so often it's, there are multiple layers. So it's not only perhaps, the unmet need that leads to the desire to cry, that leads to then the behavior, that it's judgment. So, this is a profound process that we go back on down those steps when we're healing for ourselves as adults, to actually see all the places where the shaming or the judging was kind of implanted almost, and the ways that we need to unravel, not only feel how painful it was to be judged when we actually most needed love and support and compassion, the times when we were told there's something wrong with us when we most needed to hear, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing that you're doing. This is the most normal, natural thing that you're doing. And the beauty of aware parenting is doing whatever we can in kind of going back in that journey, so that we have more availability and more capacity to actually respond with love and compassion rather than judgment and shaming. And of course, we all will find that hard at times because of our own hurts and conditioning. But the more inner work we do, the more likely we are going to be able to do more of that.
100%. I love that. And that's why we often come back to, again, the more we can look at our own stories as parents and feel into what we didn't get and the healing we needed, and the more compassion we have for ourselves, and that naturally comes across to our children, to other people. How often do we talk about compassion? All the time, because it is so fundamental in creating that healing. And I also want to touch on, I guess, and I'll just talk mainly for mothers at the moment, and I'm sure this is true for fathers as well, but so many women I've worked with over the years, who come because they're feeling this rage towards their children, or this, I'm feeling so upset dropping my child at daycare, or all these different places where they kind of make themselves wrong for having those feelings. And they're not wrong for having those feelings, because rage, and mother rage, as we love to talk about, is real. And it is, often the powerlessness we feel. It's the lack of the village and the community, and we're trying to do 5,000 things. It's feeling the powerlessness of that we never actually got to express from when we were younger, and our children just can bring that up in us. It can be about the fact that it doesn't feel right dropping your child at daycare, and then being made to feel bad that you feel upset because there's a part of you that says, I actually don't want to be separated from my child, or this doesn't feel good who I'm handing them over to. Or there's so many places where we quickly dismiss how we're feeling and think, oh, well, I just shouldn't do that. And if only I could feel like this, or if only it looked like that. And actually, really, we're just responding again to our environment or our past, or we're looking at these signs that say, hey, maybe that doesn't feel right for me and my family as well. And there is nothing wrong with you for feeling those things. And it's the ability to tune in and say, what's here? What's here for me in this moment? Is this about what's happening right now? Is this about something from the past? Where do I know this feeling from? All these beautiful questions that we often share and ask and talk about on our podcast are beautiful things to reflect on whenever we're running that story of, well, why am I feeling like this and what's wrong with me? Instead of actually just being really gently curious and go, oh, there's something here. There's something here, and what's that about? And the default being, I'll be kind and compassionate to myself in these moments, because, they're messengers, and I'm not bad. I'm feeling I'm not getting my needs met, or there's something here for me.
I love that, Lael. I remember maybe about a decade ago, and I was working with parents, and particularly mothers as well, and really seeing them practicing aware parenting and meeting their children's needs as much as they possibly could, and listening to their feelings, and not using punishments and rewards, and not judging and shaming as much as possible, and yet doing all the things themselves, ignoring their own needs, judging themselves for their own feelings, punishing and well, not really much rewarding, but punishing, judging, guilt, all of that stuff. And it helped me see that it's so fundamental that we see that this is a parallel journey, because if we're trying to just do this to our children, which I remember starting off going, yes, I'm going to do this to my daughter, so she's going to have no control patterns. And even though I'd done so much inner work beforehand, it's still realizing, oh my gosh, it's just that constant invitation. If I'm judging myself, and we've talked a lot about this in other podcasts too, if we're judging ourselves, even if we never judge our child, they will still be in some osmotic way, even if we're not even saying that out loud, they're going to be receiving that. So it's so important for us to be seeing this as an invitation, as you say, to increasingly replace those internalized shame voices, those internalized judgments, to actually replace it with more and more compassion, so that we respond to ourselves, to our younger parts, to our inner children, to all our ways we've learned to protect ourselves or to fit in, to belong, to be loved, with increasing compassion, because that has a profound impact. And over time, we have more and more of a sense of, oh, actually, there isn't anything wrong with me. There isn't anything wrong with me. I would love to say to our listeners and watchers, there is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you when you feel angry, when you feel outraged. There is nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you when you feel sad. There's nothing wrong with you when you feel scared. There's nothing wrong with you when you feel exhausted. There's nothing wrong with you when you feel overwhelmed or confused. There is nothing wrong with you.
I love that. And I would love to offer them that when those thoughts come up and you start to judge yourself, or you start to go, God, why do I feel this way? Or I shouldn't be like this, or I shouldn't be like that. And all the shoulds and stuff come in. Could you, in that moment, take a deep breath? Can you remember us in that second of us talking to you and saying to you, what if I was curious about this instead of judging myself, and instead of going into those stories and patterns? What if instead I could just be curious, and I could step to the side of what's happening and come back to just knowing, actually, the truth of who I am is I'm enough, and meet it with some compassion and curiosity, and then see what comes up. See what am I telling myself here, and where do I know this feeling from? And just be curious. The curiosity is so powerful, because when you're curious and you also can meet it with a bit of compassion, then it opens itself up to exploring a bit deeper what is there for you and what you may need to look into and feel into. And if you can come to it with a container or a holding, and maybe we are giving you to this, we're giving this to you in our words here, with exactly what Marion said, there's nothing wrong with you. And you are doing the best job you know how, with the stories you have experienced and the journeys you've had. And in this moment, we want you to know that you are enough, and that everything that has been in your past or your story has brought you to this point, and you have a beautiful opportunity to lean into what could feel wholesome and nourishing and compassionate, so that you can move forward. I wonder what that feels like, to just think about it that way. Or instead of the judgment and all the things that we so easily default to, what if compassion could be your default? What would happen then? And for some of you, you might be like, yeah, that sounds good in theory, but it can't happen, right? And then there's another piece you can take, which is to lean into, well, what would you make it mean if I was really compassionate and kind to myself? What would I then have to give up? That's a whole other story. It's a whole other tangent to go down. But again, if we come back to that, we're often working from protection to keep ourselves safe. And, sometimes those things that we don't like work for us. And, we get some mileage out of it somewhere. And what happens if I didn't have to have that story anymore, or play that game, or do it that way? What would that then mean? So there's so many beautiful inquiries you can lean into with that curiosity of just opening up a tiny door of compassion to yourself, and seeing what comes from there.
So beautiful.
I just can feel that as you say it, right? I remember so clearly not feeling like that and being unhappy and full of judgment, and resentful, so resentful as a mother. I remember all those feelings so well. And to sit over the other side now where I don't ever let any of those negative thoughts rule me. They might pop in and I'll be like, what do you want? Or I might be like, oh, something's here because I'm feeling something. Let's lean into it. But when the default becomes compassion, well, then we just look through a completely different lens to the rest of the world, don't we?
It's amazing, isn't it? Do you find that when you reflect back? Like I know I've shared this in other podcasts, but I was so full of shame sticks and self-judgment sticks that I could not actually imagine what it would be like to be in this place now with a deeply compassionate inner dialogue. And just like you, even if something mildly self-judgmental kind of comes in as a thought, and kind of like, oh, what do you know? That doesn't have any Velcro to stick to, which is so amazing, isn't it? The amazingness of that. Do you know what I'm thinking as well, how we could use this can be a really helpful way to support ourselves to parent in the ways that we want to, because if we think about I'm imagining for everyone, we do not want our children to believe that there's something wrong with them. I'm imagining everyone listening could agree. So when we're responding to them, even when every part of us might just really want to be putting in that shame, even though it's really subtle shame, or we might want to be saying, what is wrong with you right now, to actually remember that is what happens over time, that those do get internalized, and they're always repairable. So if you've said that many times, it's still repairable. We can still support change, but also it can support us to actually go, I really don't want to say that to them, because I really don't want them to believe there's something wrong with them. So even though every single part of me wants to speak those, just shame the hell out of them, I'm not willing to do that right now. And I might need to just not say anything for a few moments, or just whatever it takes in us, but to actually say, to imagine what it would be like for them if instead, even if we can't move straight into compassion, but actually just stop the judging or shaming, and then actually, even if we can, to make an extra step to say something that's loving and compassionate. And of course, we might need loving limits at times. Of course, we've talked lots about those, but the power of our words do become their inner voice. Our words do become their inner voice. So if we want them to grow up with a compassionate inner dialogue, without loads of shame, without a fundamental belief there's something wrong with them, it's those day to day responses that we respond, how we respond to them is profoundly powerful.
Yes, I love that so much. I think it's the tricky part of parenting, because nobody wants to do that. I know that we don't want to respond in those ways to our kids with harshness. And sometimes the greatest gift we can do is to walk away, is to go outside, is to go to the bathroom, is to take a moment, is to actually pause. I say this to a lot of parents who I work with teenagers. If you are fired up and stuff is happening, I'm like, you can give it some time. Like, I'll be back in a few hours to chat about it, or sleep on it. And in that meantime, go and talk to a listening partner or an empathy buddy, like have a chat, see what's there for you, so you can come back and be centered and anchored with how you feel towards them, so that you don't respond in those ways. And it is super tricky. Like, I want to send a lot of compassion and empathy to everybody when you do get reactive, because we all do. And remember, again, if we look back further, we're often super reactive because we're either stressed, or our nervous system is really buzzing, or it's tapping us into all those unmet feelings and needs that we never got to lean into when we were kids. And so it's really important, again, if you are reactive to it, you still be compassionate to yourself. Man, I just exploded. And that's a sign that I'm at capacity. It's a sign that there's some stuff here for me to do. See it, meet it with that compassion again, and then lean into doing some work for yourself to do it. And it's not easy. It's not easy. And that's, again, this applies. There's nothing wrong with you. It isn't easy, because as we say so many times, changing the patterns in our lineage, in our story. You know, aware parenting, that first generation aware parenting, is so big, because you are trying to do something with your children that has not been shown to you, and that's huge. So we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to go, wow, yep, I'm turning up, and it may look a bit messy, and it may be clunky, and it may be wobbly, but I'm doing it, and I'm leaning in. And each time we see that evidence, as you talked about right at the beginning, Marion, of our kids being in their true essence and feeling lit up, and we see, yes, okay, this is the baseline here. This is what we know is possible, and we keep doing the work to get there. And it doesn't happen overnight, because, you know, we all have to lean into those parts of ourselves. But the more we do, and the more we, you know, link in with other community who do it, and sometimes it's about getting extra support, then the more we do that, the easier it becomes. And then before you know it, it's shifted.
I want to go back to what you're saying about when we're in a reactive space, and how much harder that is if we've got our children are younger. And I would say, as a rule of thumb, if we're ever responding from a reactive place, it's never going to go well, is it? It's always preferable to not say something. I even occasionally see it myself now, sometimes, very rarely, but I just say, just don't say anything, because speaking from this place is never going to actually have any helpful impact at all. Best not say anything for now. Just zip it up. Loving limit to myself. I'm not willing to speak this. Every part of me might want to. It's really powerful, actually, to stop ourselves from saying those harsh things, because they are painful. They hurt our children. We know from our own inner processing, to be judged and to be shamed is incredibly painful. And I think what I love to do is to really support people in understanding in their own internal process, that even though these might be sticks that you're doing to yourself all the time, you know, there's something wrong there, but the very first time you heard that phrase from someone, perhaps when you were a little 2-year-old or a little 3-year-old, just dancing around, whatever it was, it really hurt. It hurt. And that's what it's designed to. It's designed to hurt. So to actually reflect back on that, and I remember for myself, when I was really exploring this a few years ago, and exploring some school hurts, teenage at school hurts, and how excruciatingly painful it was, how much in pain I was when I experienced that judgment. And it's something to really take in, how painful that is as humans, to be judged, especially when we're little, especially when we're a child or a teenager. It's very, very painful. And I do think there's something about at the point that we're willing to go back and to actually feel that, when we have enough support, internal and external, because that again supports us in going, I don't want to do this to my child or my partner or my parents, or even just some random stranger. Like it's not enjoyable. And I certainly do not want to do it to myself. And where we get to the point where we go, I'm actually not willing to do this. I'm not willing to speak in these harsh ways. It's a powerful process, but I think there's something about, in some way, needing to feel how painful it is to receive that, and to understand that this isn't in our culture. I think it's just the DDC is like, oh yeah, just judge. You know, we look at a lot of YouTube comment sections, or most of the media. I remember growing up in England, the newspapers, it's just it was shame. It's just shame and guilt all everywhere. And to actually understand, this is not how we're designed to be. This is the DDC. This is conditioning. We are not designed to be talking to each other like this.
Yeah, 100%. And I did this exercise actually with the guides at my school. We were doing training around responding to children, and we did this exercise where I was saying to one of them, I want you to just keep wriggling on your seat, and then this other one, I was like, I want you two to keep talking, and then I was saying to someone else, I want you to be the good girl, and so the rest of the class, they were my guides. So I was like, I'm the teacher, right? And I'm like, I want you to focus on me. And so as I'm trying to teach them something, I was then telling off the one for wriggling, and I made them sit on the floor. And then, and let me just frame, I said to everybody, are you open for this? Let's make sure, you're all feeling safe in it. And it was funny. We were laughing and we were playing it. But I was like, I really want you to take note of how you feel. And for those other people here, I want you to notice how it feels. Imagine you're 6 years of age, right? What is going on for you in your body when this is happening and that's happening? And then the good girl, I was rewarding, and, like I gave her $20. I'm like, you get $20 because you're a good girl, right? It was very funny. We were all laughing, right? But then we stopped and I was like, okay, what came up for you? And yeah, the ones who were getting in trouble, they were like, whoa, that 6-year-old in me was like, gosh, and one of them was saying, I just wanted you to understand why I was wriggling. And I was like, yeah. And the other one was like, but I had something really important to say to my friend. And I was like, yes. And the other one who was good was like, I just wanted to be the good girl so I would be okay. And everybody, it was really fascinating just playing that. And then going, okay, so let's look at what we've been conditioned to do, or let's look at what happens, in a lot of standard classrooms, and let's look at, what comes up for us in this, and how do we own that within ourselves so that we don't then transfer them to the children. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful exercise to just really feel, what is it like being on the other side of this? What does it feel like? It does not feel good. We know it doesn't feel good. We know it doesn't feel good as an adult if you're in places or workplaces where you're getting shamed or told off or that kind of stuff. And we're adults, right? And yet, what we put up with or what we don't, it's a whole other thing. But yeah, it doesn't feel good. And I think it's really, I want to come back to, again, we do this sometimes with our children because of our own hurts. And I know nobody feels good doing it. It's the same as a child. No child feels good hitting another child or kicking the dog or hurting their brother. Like, they don't feel good doing it. They're doing it because of that stuff there. And the same compassion, understanding to us as parents. We don't yell because we want to. We're not mean or harsh or critical because it feels good. It's because, we've got our stuff going on that we need to do the work on to help us find more of that center to respond to our children from that way. So again, deep compassion to ourselves and the journey. And if you are being like that as a parent, and, our heart goes out to you because we know how hard it is. And we also say that is such a beautiful invitation to be curious, to get some support, to look into what do I need to do to unpack these stories or feel them so I can come back to that place to be how I want to be with my children.
So profound, isn't it? Understanding this, even as you said. I love that you did that exercise. That's so powerful. Can you imagine if every school was doing that, or every parent was getting the opportunity to see actually how painful it is to be punished, to be shamed, to be judged, so that we do it less and less and less. Gosh, I was actually remembering a situation in a shop, and I'm just remembering stressed and tired, and my kids had lots of feelings. And I just remember, even in a really subtle way, just that subtle shaming. Like, I never did like really overt shaming, but I had some subtle ways occasionally when I was really stretched, and I could hear myself doing it. And I didn't want to do it, and I was just in pain and just responding that way. And I just, so much love to that younger me, and so much love to you if you notice those words coming out of your mouth, because also the reason you're saying them is because you either heard them directly or you heard other children being told those things when you were growing up. We wouldn't do this stuff if we hadn't heard it growing up. If it wasn't internalized in us, we wouldn't do that harsh stuff.
I think as you're talking about that, I really, for me, what is wrong with me, my version of that is I was so deeply sensitive as a child. I felt everything so deeply, and therefore, like, I would get upset about stuff. I'd be really sensitive. I was really, really shy. Like, I just wouldn't talk for a long time. And there was that essence, what's wrong with you? Like, why can't you just speak? But it's like, I felt everything so deeply. Like, I remember like crying at night with my mum going, how am I going to fix the state of the world? was like 7. And I remember just thinking, the world is so broken. What am I going to do? And my mum's like, whoa, like, this is not yours to carry, Lael. But, I remember just feeling so deeply sensitive, and that was wrong. There was something wrong with that. Why couldn't I just let that go or move on? And I would sit on things for ages, and I would worry about it. And I was so worried about what others would think. And there was just, I look back and the internalized state was, why can't I be like the others and not feel like this? Yet that is one of my superpowers now. It's one of the most amazing things about me, is the capacity to feel deeply and to tune into others. I love that about myself. I see that in my own children, who also too sometimes struggle with not being able to, navigate and cope in the world, because it feels very jarring, because they have this other sensitivity or compassion or those kind of places within them. So it's really interesting. I'm wondering if, as people are listening, if they want to reflect back into, what is it that you felt was wrong with you when you were growing up, or what were you told, or what did you internalize as being not okay? Should have you been more like your brother? Should you have been smarter or better at school? Were you too sensitive? Were you too loud? Were you too big? Were you too small? Like, what are all the things that we are told or we internalize around where we're not okay?
I want to say, Lael, I was smiling when you're sharing about the highly sensitive. I hope that didn't come across as not listening to Mashi, but the sudden thought I had is those little, because I was just the same, as you know, didn't say anything so highly sensitive, was always told I was too sensitive, would cry at the drop of a hat, and had a whole bunch of unexpressed feelings as well. And if we could go back and say to those 2 little girls, I mean, I know mine would be older than yours, sweethearts, you're gonna be talking on a podcast one day. You're gonna be listening. We'd be like,
okay. yeah, I know. Isn't that funny? Because I look at it and think, one of my favorite things to do in the world is to do public speaking, and I talk in front of big audiences, right? And as a 5-year-old, that just would be just so beyond my comprehension or reality. But that's one of the favorite things I like doing now. And, if I go back and go, what did I need back then, or what would have helped, was probably an adult to be able to tune into me to say, you are amazing just the way you are. And even though the world feels big now and you are feeling everything deeply, this is something that is going to be so powerful for you as you get older. So how can I help you? How can I make this feel better for you? That's probably what I would have needed. And I bless my mum, she tried, because she could see it and feel it, but it probably wasn't exactly enough of what I needed. But that's a really interesting thing to think about. Again, what was it for you, and what would you have needed from the adults in your life so that you didn't have to carry that story forward?
I love that, Lael. And I love that you talk about that as your superpower, remembering the t-shirt I've got also, that highly sensitive is my superpower. And I'm thinking as well, like in terms of children, like if for those who are parents, I imagine most of you are parents who are listening or watching, is to imagine like anything that's maybe different about your child. Perhaps your child doesn't enjoy spelling or writing, they much prefer drawing, or perhaps your child really loves, I don't know, skateboarding, but really doesn't like maths. I don't know, whatever the things are, to really again be thinking about how you're responding to them. Are you willing to see these differences about them as beautiful gifts that they're here to bring to the world, rather than things that are wrong with them? Maybe they have a diagnosis of something or other. Are you willing to see that as actually being something that's different about them, that's an incredible gift that they bring to the world? Maybe they got a diagnosis of dyslexia, but actually, how do they see the world in a different way that is an incredible gift? And that's not to deny if they need extra support or so on, but actually to that flip from where we're different. Again, the DDC sees if someone's different and there's something wrong with them, but where can our child's differences be really celebrated and seen as their beautiful gifts? And it's my understanding in more Indigenous cultures that is what happens, is each child was really seen for, what are they here? And they were watched to see, what are they going to be? Are they going to be the medicine person? And if so, what do we need to do to support that? They might be, having visions of horses in the sky. I don't know. What can we do to support them, and watching out for their they're beautiful gifts in the world, rather than that, that they don't fit in or there's something wrong with them because they're not like other children. It's such a different way of seeing things, and I think again helps us be less likely to judge or shame. And I think often, again, that's where we need to do our inner work, isn't it? Because often it might come from fear about, how are they going to fit in, or how are they going to make a living, or what will people think of them? What will people think of me as their parent? So often we need so much compassion, because I know for me, some of my most painful parenting moments were, what will people be thinking about me when they see my child doing this? So again, that internalized shame or judgment. The most painful places.
That is such a big one, isn't it? The judgment we carry of what will others think, how will they be perceived, all of those things. That's huge. That's really huge. I remember, carrying this. I think I maybe said that to you when years and years ago when we first connected, and you're like, Lael will become an aware parenting instructor. And then I was like, no, because then my kids have to be perfect. Like if I'm doing this, then that, and you were like, no, they don't. So, but it really held me back for a while, because I was just like, no, is there going to be this pressure? And then I realized there is no perfect, and my kids have all the permission to mess up and have messy lives and be who they need to be, because they're human, and we're all human, and there is no perfect. And and it was a bit freeing when I finally went, oh, let that go. And I think it was even doing aware parenting for so long, and then watching one of my kids really have something big go on, and me sitting there going, no, you're not meant to feel like this, because I've done all these other things and I've done it so well, and so now you should be like just perfect. And then it kind of was like, no, there's no perfect. We're humans having human experiences, and so all of that's welcome, right? And the aware parenting is the ability to stay connected through the messy and connected through the things that are, wobbly, and that's the gold, right? So it's not so much about what they're doing, it's our ability to stay connected to it. So there you go. For anyone out there who's thinking, I've got to get this right and then my children will be perfect, I just want to let you know it's really good to drop that illusion right now, because it's probably not going to happen. So, yeah.
Oh, I had something I wanted to say and it's gone.
Oh.
So waiting for that to come back again.
All right. Well, while we talk about something else, it'll probably come back. All right. What would you love to offer people around this? There is nothing wrong with you.
I'm going to invite you to go, because that thing's like next in the bus queue. That thought is next in the bus queue, stopping the other buses from arriving. So what about you, Lael?
I will say then. Well, I'll go back to what I mentioned before about, think about you as a little one, and what did you take on, or that you carried that you thought was not okay with you? What were you told, or what did you internalize, or what did you think was the truth? And what did you make that mean? And then, what would you have needed when you were little to counteract that, so that you did start a different story, knowing that you were beautiful and enough and magnificent just the way you are?
I love that, Lael.
What about for you?
Well, I'd like to add to that, which is just another extra bit, which is the same as what you were saying, but me and my passion for language is, what specifically would you have liked to have heard, and what would you like to hear now? I call that a reparative statement. So that might be, one of mine is, I love you exactly as you are. Really hearing that for all the times that I thought I wasn't loved exactly as I was as a younger person. So I'd love to say that to everyone watching, listening. I love you exactly as you are. You don't need to do anything to be loved. No, I love you exactly as you are.
And I just want to again really say that if this really brings up feelings for you, and there is a lot of that harsh inner talk and dialogue, then I so invite you to reach out to someone for support. There's a lot of amazing aware parenting instructors out there who do beautiful sessions, and lots of, find your person, right? But it is, for me, I just see it as one of the greatest gifts you can give your children is to do your own work. Because the more we do it and the more we lean into that, the freer our children are to be who they need to be. So yeah, lean in if you can, because it's and even if you can't afford therapy, or you don't have a listening partner, or just start writing, start journaling, like take some of the prompts that we've said today to just explore a bit further around, what may be there for you, because it's amazing how quickly stuff can shift when we're willing to lean into it.
Yes.
Did you think come back? Did you thought come back
No,
or
and
not?
no, I bet it'll come as soon as we stop talking.
All right.
Share it
Well,
somewhere.
it
I'll
can be
share it
the
in the next
topic.
one.
Can be the topic of the next podcast. All right. I wanted to say the biggest thank you to everybody who keeps messaging us and sharing. I had a beautiful chat with a woman in Belgium the other day through Instagram who just said, I love your stuff and all our friends love it. And I made a joke to her and said, oh my God, Marion and I should come to Belgium. And she's like, I'll organize a tour for you. Thank you to all the people in Belgium who listen, because I think they are, apart from Australia, I think they're the second highest country that we have listeners. So thank you to everybody who's listening from all over the world. It's so beautiful getting your messages, and when you share what we're talking about, it's such a delight for us, isn't it, Marion, to just know that these conversations reach people and make an impact. So thank you everybody. You can still leave us a review or rate us on the podcast platforms, because that's always good. It kind of boosts us up there. So, if you feel inclined to do that, we'd love it. So thank you, everybody. What have you got going on, Marion? Have you got anything, like we're getting towards the end of February? Is there something you want to tell people about?
Yep, I've got my Aware Parenting Instructor mentoring course. So just as you were sharing, Lael, you do not need to be perfect in any way, shape or form to be an Aware Parenting Instructor. So I've got that coming up. I have also Aware Parenting Instructor mentoring, which is one-to-one. So extra support for people who really are wanting to become instructors really soon and are really ready and on the cusp and need more, really want that inner support, exactly as we were saying, to listen to all the feelings that are showing up around that and to really deeply embody this work. And I also have an Aware Parenting with Marion immersion. And I know you have, so mine is like a long one, like a 9-month one. And I know you have
the long
your
version, and I've got the short version.
Short version. So you've also got your immersion showing up, coming up.
And I think that's beautiful, because I think what you're offering is just a lot more of that slow, like, lean in. And this is so me. I'm all like, fast, yes, let's do it. So I've got my immersion. I think they're both starting on the 28th of Feb. So they're coming soon. So if anybody wants to join that, you're so welcome to. Still got a few spots left. Yes, I know. I love all the offerings out there. And there are, there's lots of other people doing some beautiful work out there too. So, there's lots of places to connect in, if you're wanting some more support.
Yes, we also have the free Aware Parenting based on the work of Aletha Salter Facebook group, which is such a gorgeous community. So come along there if you like to. We've also now started a YouTube channel for this. It's just very small right now, but we'd love that to grow. So if you also, even if you've listened to this on your podcast channel and you'd like to show us a little bit of support, please come along to the YouTube channel and click on subscribe and like and all those things, and support that. That would be so wonderful.
Yeah, and as always, we love hearing what you'd like us to talk about. So if there is something that you would like us to explore, then please send us a message. You can reach us through Instagram or Facebook, and we'll see what we can do. Thanks for being here, everybody.
There is nothing wrong with you. So much love to you.